Hello and welcome to An Old Man Watches. And today I'm going to be talking about the 2006 teen spy film Stormbreaker, or as it was known in the US on its cinema release, Alex Rider Operation Stormbreaker, which is something of a mouthful, to be honest. And in this film, we meet 14-year-old Alex Rider. Alex is an orphan who lives with his uncle Ian, a bank manager who is often away on business. However, when his uncle dies in a car crash, Alex smells a rat. Ian Ryder was an excellent and very careful driver who always wore his seatbelt, something he allegedly wasn't doing at the time of the crash. The teenager investigates, quickly learning that his supposed bank manager uncle was actually a spy working for MI6. Unfortunately, Ian's cover was blown and he was murdered. It's probably not a surprise, given how easily a 14-year-old cracks MI6's cover story for his death. They're clearly a bit rubbish at this spy business. They also have a total disregard for child endangerment laws because MI6 now forcibly recruit Alex into their ranks. He's not very keen on the idea, but he's only 14 after all, and they can make his life very unpleasant if he doesn't play along vis-a-vis guardianship and the like. So he gets trained and is assigned his first mission to investigate billionaire Darius Sale. Sale is donating free high-powered computer systems, codenamed Stormbreaker, hence the name of the movie, to every school in the United Kingdom. And MI6 is suspicious of this seemingly gratuitously generous plan, and they send Alex undercover as a competition winner to learn the truth. Sale is, of course, up to no good. There wouldn't be much of a movie if he wasn't. And uncovering and thwarting his nefarious plan basically makes up the rest of the movie. This movie is based on the first of a series of novels by Anthony Horowitz and was intended itself to be the first entry in a film franchise, as evidenced by the US title. Presumably future films would have all followed that same Alex Rider Operation such and such type structure. However, this movie was a box office failure, sinking any further plans for screen adaptation of Alex Rider until Amazon Prime launched a reboot TV series in 2020. So why did this film misfire? Well, as you might imagine, I have some ideas about that, and I'm going to share them with you. So first of all, it's very obvious that the concept behind Alex Rider is teenage James Bond. And, that's a perfectly sound basic concept for a series of books or a series of movies or a TV show or whatever. It's an easy elevator pitch. James Bond, but he's a teen. The problem is that, in my opinion, this film, which was written by the author of the novels, and so the novels themselves may also have this trait, is too blatantly and slavishly a pastiche of Fleming's famous spy, particularly his movie Incarnation. Stormbreaker has a Bond movie style opening action sequence, a quirky technical specialist who gives Alex his highly plot specific gadgetry, a homicidal billionaire who has a private army, a ridiculously complicated plan, a femme fatale, and a visually distinctive bodyguard. Alex even has a love interest with a Bond woman inspired name, though dialed down a little for the intended YA audience, Sabina Pleasure. It's not as on the nose as Fleming's names, but only because it's much less crude. And what this ultimately combines to do is to make the movie feel a bit like the reheated leftovers of other movies that you've already seen, tacked together into a new narrative that is consciously checking off a list of beats it has to hit without much real care for why or how they work together. It feels I've seen this all before. It lacks the thing that makes it's like Bond, but because it's like Bond, but he's a teenager, isn't enough. Secondly, one of the main things that I felt while watching this movie was frustrated at seeing all of these hugely talented cast members being given nothing to do, because it has a hugely talented cast, at least for its minor roles and supporting roles, but they don't get to do a lot of anything. Take Ewan McGregor. He's a fine actor, but in this film he's playing Ian Ryder, so he's dead inside the first 10 minutes. You've got Sophie Okonedo, who is similarly talented and also desperately short of actual screen time. And this continues across many of the roles. It's constantly a case of, oh, it's such and such, this should be fun. And then that person not really being given enough chance to shine. I think the problem is that the movie's just trying to cram too much into its runtime. Now, that would be a flaw regardless of who your cast was. If you're trying to jam too much into your movie, you're just jamming too much into your movie. But it's particularly galling when you've got a cast with as many talented actors as this one. I think either the film should have been 20 minutes longer, it'd still be under 2 hours at that length, or they needed to cut a lot of the setup about how Alex becomes a spy and just start with him already as an agent. That would also probably make MI6 slightly less objectionable, but yeah. So I think that's another problem with the film. Overstuffing the film has led to them wasting some really great talent, because the cast is fantastic. And then finally, there's the ending of the movie. Now, I don't think it's much of a spoiler to reveal that the devious plans of Darius Sale ultimately thwarted. Nobody would have expected otherwise, right? It's not like James Bond ever loses. I'm going to avoid going into details about exactly what happens, because I think those kind of details would constitute spoilers. But I do feel like I need to say that the conclusion is a bit of a flaw in the film. Sale's defeat comes largely from factors outside Alex Rider's control. Now, Alex's efforts do contribute to those factors existing in the first place, but at the end of the day, he plays little to no direct role in the billionaire's final fate. The main reason for this appears to be because the movie's already kind of switched its attention to setting up the future themes of the franchise, rather than focusing on delivering a really satisfying end to this one. And that's, it's an unnecessary flaw. Setting up the future of the franchise could still have been done without robbing Alex of his agency in the finale. And I think to this, it shows the dangers of a studio going into a project with their minds already on the idea of launching a franchise. Just focus on making the film you have to do now as good as possible. If you succeed in that, you can turn it into a franchise. Don't undermine the film you're making right now for imaginary future ones that may or may not ever see the light of day. And in this case, did not ever see the light of day because this film underperformed because you were spending too much time thinking about the next film and the film after that and the film after that. Now, this was not the first or the last franchise or potential franchise to fall into that particular trap, and I'm sure I'll talk about this again in future reviews. But that overall is kind of the three of the reasons that I think Stormbreaker failed to ignite the box office. It's just a movie that is considerably less than the sum of its parts. Next time then, we're going to look at the film in which Humphrey Bogart landed his first leading role, the 1941 crime thriller High Sierra. But that's next time. Until then, thanks for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it.